We've all heard the saying that goes, to err is human. All of us make mistakes. All of us have ideas and thoughts, principles, morals, and hopefully at this point in time, strategies that we use to understand our enemy, our environment, and our condition as melanated Black people in society, not just here in the U.S., but around the world, of course, because the system that we live in is a global system. I was just watching a video from Jalen Reloaded. I'll leave the link to his video in the description box. Check out his channel. He had a very interesting short clip of a news story where a colonizing female decided it was a good idea to send 65,000 text messages to a man she was obsessed with. Now, it takes a special, and by special, I mean disturbed individual. I don't want to disparage anyone who knows someone who is mentally disabled, but it takes a disturbed individual to do the things that she did in saying that she wanted to drink his blood. And the first thing I thought of was not another video, but a discussion based on a book that I think I mentioned in another video, if I'm not mistaken, or I mentioned a live stream or something like that from Richard Sugg, entitled Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires, The History of Corpse Medicine from the Renaissance to the Victorians. So from one group of whites to another group of whites. Colonizers. I'm not sure who this person is in the picture, it doesn't matter. But to the left, bottom left, near his hand, you see a skull, a human skull. It's covered with moss. And what they would do is take the moss, they would cut the head off the person, wash the skin and muscle off of the skull. They would let moss grow on the skull and use that moss, crush it down into a powder, and use it as medicine. They would use blood, fresh blood from a dead victim of war or murder or sacrifice as medicine. I just watched Lisa Cabrera's video the other day about the CDC agenda, and they discussed how, I think it was the health ranger was discussing some things. I don't agree with everything he says because he's still a colonizer, so there's going to be truth mixed in with some bullshit, of course. But to keep it as 100 as possible, as I always attempt to do, she came with truth, and the conviction in her voice, as always, is a feature of our people that I admire, that I love. So why am I doing this video? I'm doing this to describe how the enemy thinks. How they think about themselves, how they think about us. We already know from a macro level how they think about us, but on a micro level, based on their history, they don't have concern for human dignity. Human, when I say human, I mean Hueman. Because I'm still, for me, the jury is still out on whether or not they can consider themselves a member of the Homo sapiens. I'm still debating that in my own consciousness. But I will say, based on his chapters in his book, this man, even in his discussion, with Gusty Renegade on the cows. And I'll leave that link. It's a very long video. If you watch the cows, you consume the media there, you already understand the type of discussion that was had in this book. And even on that discussion with Gusty Renegade, this man was very deceptive. And that's another point. He even said at one point that he didn't want to agree that they were practicing white supremacy, practicing racism during this time. But it's very obvious they were, because slavery was occurring at this time. Chapter 4, The Other Cannibals, Man-Eaters of the New World. We know about the book, The Delectable Negro. And if you're the type of person who don't like to read, you might as well just go away from this video right now, because there are going to be a lot of links in the description box based on books, references, discussions, intellectual discussions. If your mind is that frivolously constructed and you would prefer to laugh yourself to death, as I just talked about in the previous video, then you, one, should evaluate your life. Evaluate why you think that way. And while you're evaluating your life, go to another channel. I know I laugh about things, and I feel positive. Like yesterday, I felt so positive because of the information I was getting all day from other people I subscribe to, other melanated people I subscribe to. And I give them the utmost respect. And I listen and I take heed to what they say, and I take heed to what they do. I had one section, and this is Google. You can Google this title of this book. But there are a lot of, let's see, the abbreviations they have here. One section that talks about blood in particular. We know that blood is spoken about a lot in the Bible. We know that blood is spoken about a lot. As you see here, I just said it. Classical and non-Christian uses. They talk about the Romans. We already know what they were about. So the alchemy of blood. And this is a short section, considerably short, considering that all the other sections are quite long. So I'm going to read this. Once again, this is YouTube. If you feel like you are too impatient to listen to the rest of the video, then we'll take your ass somewhere else. And I mean that. If you are too immature, impatient, and you think my videos are superfluous, look it up. You think my videos are random or irrelevant to your life, irrelevant to things that we are dealing with right now, irrelevant to whatever little stupid ass Cardi B bullshit you wanna go focus on. Take your ass and go focus on that and get off my channel. And if you don't want to take your ass and focus on that, I will eject you from my channel myself. And I mean that. So let's get to this section. The alchemy of blood. A brief survey of medicinal cannibalism in medieval Europe takes us away from mummy itself. The influential surgeon, Lafranc of Milan, cited a medicine for broken bones, which contained, among other things, gum, Arabic, and mummy. And Pandolphus Callinicus notes the use of human skulls in the 15th century. They have that noted with a reference. Both before and after this, however, blood seems to have been the most common medical agent derived from human bodies. In the 16th century, a work credited to the Swiss physician and herbalist Conrad Gesner refers to, quote, a most precious water of Albertus Magnus, as I found it in a certain written book, end quote. To make this, you should, quote, distill the blood of a healthful man by a glass, as men do rose water, end quote. Anybody out there still a organ donor on their license? Just wondering. With this, any disease of the body of it be anointed therewith is made whole, and all inward diseases by the drinking thereof. A small quantity thereof received restoreth them that have lost all their strength. It cureth the palsy effectuously, and preserveth the body from all sickness. To be short, it healeth all kinds of diseases. Anybody still taking communion out there? Because you know Jesus loves you, right? This I know, for the Bible tells me so. This statement itself tells us a good deal. The blood should be taken from a live and healthy male and thereafter processed. It could then be applied externally or swallowed, and was clearly viewed as something like an elixir of life. Given the status of St. Albertus Magnus as perhaps the greatest scientist of his day, cannibal of his day, we can well imagine that the recipe was widely used. Magnus's contemporary and fellow scientist Roger Bacon referred in The Cure of Old Age and Preservation of Youth to certain wise men who have tacitly made mention of some medicine, which is likened to that which goes out of the mind of the noble animal. They affirm that in it there is a force and virtue, which restores and increases the natural heat. This agent was, indeed, said to be like youth itself. Bacon himself was skeptical about this substance. The substance they're talking about is blood. And his 17th century translator, the physician Richard Brown, also doubted that the medicine referred to was any kind of quintessence. For all that, Brown did note that some would have this to be quintessence of man's blood. Kind of homoerotic to me. You drinking a man's blood and you a man? Okay. You got to put a man to sleep to get his blood now. The Spanish alchemist, astrologer, and physician Arnold of Villanova described various oils made from human bones against epilepsy, gout, and indeed all griefs. Arnold was also believed to have given quite detailed directions for the preparation of blood around this time. A letter thought to have been written by Arnold, addressed to his dearly beloved friend, Master Jacobus of Toledo, answered this latter's request that I would open to you my secret of man's blood. Jacobus was instructed accordingly to use the blood of healthful men, about 30 years of age, out of which draw according to art the 4 elements, as you well have learned and know by the rules of alchemy, and diligently stop each element apart, that no air breathe forth. This water of blood, the letter claimed, had power against all sicknesses. It was especially effective at restoring the spiritual members, presumably the liver, heart, and brain, then thought to contain a vaporous spirit of blood and air. It expelled poison from the heart, enlarged the arteries, cleared phlegm from the lungs, healed ulcers, cleansed the blood, and cured diarrhea or cysts. Air of blood, particularly well suited to the young, was recommended for apoplexy, epilepsy, eye problems, migraine, and dizziness. Most remarkable of all, however, was the distilled fire of human blood, given to one in the hour of death, in the quantity of a wheat grain, distempered or mixed with wine, in such manner entered down, that it be past the throat. It shall forthwith cause the person to revive again, and shall at the instant enter to the heart itself, in expelling the superfluous humours, and with this reviveth the natural heat of his liver, and quickeneth so all the parts that it moveth the patient and very weak person, as it were within an hour to speak, and to dispose and utter his will. The author further asserts that he had indeed seen a miracle wrought by this agent on the noble Earl and Deputy of Paris, which before lay in a manner as dead, and immediately after he had received this down, became again to himself somewhat, and within an hour after died. If this miracle appears somewhat limited, we will find the author's claims echoed and amplified in following centuries. He adds, moreover, that if old men also use of this fire every day, in a little quantity, it maketh old age lusty, and to continue in like estate a long time, in that this cheereth their hearts, in such manner that they will think themselves to possess juvenile hearts and courages, and for that cause this fire is named the elixir vitae, or the life juice, or the life serum. Vitae meaning life, the serum of life. So they take life, and the consumption of blood is not as widely recognized. We just saw Superboy with Mr. Superboy 223-222, and now his channel, Your World. Go subscribe to his channel. He talked about the white girl on Superman show having a sex cult. It's not just about drinking your blood, it's about consumption in other ways. I'm presenting this video as a way to show how our enemy thinks. And as you know, True Royal Family will have more discussions about the book, The Art of War. You need to know everything you can about your enemy, your environment, and your condition. And those are not my words. Those come from the Jedi himself. Go subscribe to his channel. He has a wealth of information on there. It goes on to say, these last lines in particular prompt some intriguing questions. Is it worse to take another's blood as a kind of habitual health supplement, or indeed elixir of youth and life, than it is to take it for specific medical ills or emergencies? The question still applies in our own time, given that certain jaded rock stars are supposed to have themselves replenished with someone else's healthy blood at specific intervals. However, we might quibble about this at the level of scientifically based physiology. Blood, unlike the proverbial arm and a leg, will after all replenish itself. It is clear that the general wisdom enshrined in phrases such as sucking their lifeblood feels otherwise. More importantly, this routine elixir now swiftly conjures both the demonized specter of the vampire and all those numerous metaphors of social, economic, or psychological vampirism to which he would give rise. That's what I was just talking about. It's not just about physical vampirism. It's also about psychological. It's about deception, consuming your attention, consuming your time, which is one of the only resources you have that you cannot get back. Consuming your energy, consuming all forms of you when you are in an interracial relationship with them. Consuming your money, which is an energy, a currency. Consuming people that you know. You introduce them to people not knowing that the person you're introducing them to is not your friend, but is a vampire, an energy vampire who will suck you dry, and anyone else around you, they will suck them dry as well. So this book is a metaphor. It is a literal expression of what happened in the past, but it's also metaphors in here that you can take with you. I have not found a similar book coming from one of them telling us what they have done and what they plan to do in the future. I have read Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. That's another book. Of course, I mentioned the Delectable Negro, Equiano, wrote that book about his times on a slave ship where they were afraid, thinking that these colonizers were going to eat them. So yes, it's important to recognize what you are faced with every day. And I know there are a lot of younger people that may come to my channel that maybe have never heard of these books or never heard of some of the concepts that we discuss. I don't want you to be intimidated or afraid. Take your time and learn the information, but don't have the excuse that you don't have time to learn more about different things and to be prepared for the world around you. The next paragraph goes on to say, at one level, then, we here confront an intriguing possibility. The first vampires known to Western Europe, were social, rather than supernatural predators, and were sustained not by spirit forces, but by the labors of a proto-scientific chemistry. Whoever wrote Arnold's letter clearly took this matter seriously. He had treated a French earl, and his epistle managed to survive for some centuries after it was written. There seem then to have been medically authorized vampires abroad in Italy and Spain, and perhaps England, in the 13th century, men, possibly also women, who habitually consumed the life forces of their fellow human beings in order to stave off both the rigors of age and the final hand of death itself. In conclusion of this paragraph, or this section, it says, at another level, it is possible that the medieval alchemy of blood comprised a tradition of medical cannibalism, which was more or less independent of the tradition centered on Egyptian mummy. If this is so, it is clearly significant, both from a social and an anthropological viewpoint. It suggests that European Christians were effectively able to surmount the nominally very basic taboo against cannibalism not once, but twice. As we will see, once this prohibition was broken, it was broken with a vengeance, and for many centuries to come. I hope that you gained some information from this video. I hope that you go and don't buy the book. Just download it for free. And learn something after you've done that of your enemy. Listen to the C.O.W.S. I suggest every victim listen to the C.O.W.S. to get a better understanding of a wide array of topics, providing a different perspective on topics, mostly unpopular topics that are not necessarily spoken about in the media, all within the context of white supremacy, which is the meaning of the acronym, the C.O.W.S. I hope that this video isn't too heavy for some people. The gravity of some of the issues that I discuss on certain videos may seem to be very difficult to understand, but I hope that you will email me as well if you have questions. I can perhaps, if I can't answer the questions, maybe I can point you in the right direction, because I admit I don't know everything. I'm still learning, and I don't want people to think that I know everything. I definitely don't. I make mistakes all the time. Y'all don't even know. And I hope that this begins to perhaps open up a conversation about what we are facing in reality, and that this is not new. Nothing is new under the sun. We know this. And I also hope that it begins to dispel some myths about our ability to discuss these issues. I really hope it starts to get some of these coons and sambos out of our presence. But you know, that's a goal of mine, is to get these collaborators on somewhere, get their ass kicked, you know, verbally or figuratively. But yeah, on a serious note, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please go subscribe, hit that notification bell 2 times. I hope you all have a great day. I hope that you are safe out here. I hope that you are able to cleanse your spirit if necessary, and open your mind to different concepts. And with that, I'll leave you. Have a great weekend.